Hi, it's me. I'm Shar. Happy New Year! Thank you all for the very warm feedback in the previous Animate With Me video. A lot of you were really sweet, and it was really nice to see people inspired to do a little bit of animating, even if it's something they've never done before. So I'm thinking of making a couple more of these Animate With Me videos every once in a while. I'm really surprised a number of you guys actually animated with me, as per the title. It was so exciting actually seeing everyone's work. I asked the artists that tagged me in their work on social media if I could show what they made, and they should be on the screen right now. Thanks so much for trying it out and for letting me share your work here. You guys did a really great job. Anyway, for those who are new to this small series, let me give a short introduction. This Animate With Me series is something I made in response to people asking me for animation tips, tricks, and tutorials. And it's kind of a hands-on way to learn how I usually go about it. Kind of like one of those draw this in your style challenges, but with extra instructions. I need to disclaim this always, but I didn't study animation professionally. I took a completely unrelated degree in university, so everything you're learning right now is just a result of how I experienced learning animation in the past few years on my own. So I can't really say that my process is an industry standard, since I wouldn't know what that would be, if that's what you're looking for. I use Adobe Animate to create my work, but by all means, you can apply anything I'm doing in this video in your own animation, whatever software you're using. OpenTunes, Flip a Clip, Clip Studio, Toon Boom, you understand. Music playlists, timestamps, and other links are all in the description for your reference as well. And as a final note, feel free to pause at any point of the video if you want to follow along each step. If you're just here to listen to me ramble while you're doing your own thing or trying to take a nap, that's totally fine too. I can relate. In this video, we'll be focusing on using video references to create an animation. I use a good amount of video references for my longer animations, especially the more recent ones. It's a really good way to understand movement and a good way to study how to make things move more naturally. When I was a kid, I used to think not using references was a cool thing. I'm not sure why. Maybe I thought my imagination was like a force to be dealt with. Like, ooh, I can memorize what these things look like. But now that I'm no longer filled with hubris, I think using references is an essential practice to improve my work. I ask my family to help me take reference videos all the time now.
Mama, do you know how to tie a ribbon behind your back? Baka.
For this exercise, I tried really hard to think of a good reference video pose, but somewhere along the line I realized that I'm sort of uncool. So I tested out a few movements to practice with until settling with this wearing a tote bag video. If you have cooler reference videos on hand, please feel free to use those for your practice, but you're also totally free to use this if you'd like. I chose this video ultimately because it's a full body shot and I need more practice with full body shots, and it's also simple enough to practice on within a day's work. Every time I use a reference video for my animations, I like to break it down by taking only the important parts of the video where I can see a distinct pose. Essentially, these are frames I wouldn't be able to easily imagine on my own. I used to just copy and paste my reference images on a separate layer in my animations so I can easily see them, but I recently started using an application called PureRef for these. So in this program, you can place reference images, arrange them as you like, and add notes and stuff. I let it stay above all my applications and copy-paste the screenshots of my reference videos here. It's simple and effective, and it's a free program. I do encourage you to donate to the devs if it works out for you. Once all my references are up, I start sketching out the whole figure. So my figures are generally formatted in this way. I've made stickmen and other more detailed models in the past, but I found that this is the most comfortable way for me to draw things fast and still understand what's going on when I start detailing it. I make a sketch for each reference frame I took from the video with the brush tool, sharing my settings on screen right now. And just so you guys understand what's going through my head while I draw these, I wrote down some notes as I drew each frame. I'll slowly show each frame here on screen along with the notes. You can pause the video to read them if you'd like. They're mostly just observations from the reference material that I wanted to keep in mind going forward once I make the animation smoother. And they're also observations I want to keep in mind the next time I make a character move in a similar way. Here's what the initial sketch looks like animated. Now that the key movements have been drawn out, I can work on making the animation smoother with in-between frames. I think the biggest issue I had with in-betweens when I first started animating was where to put them, but as I've said in the previous video, a good way to think about them is to identify what movements are fast and what movements are slow. So slower movement uses many similar frames, while faster movement uses few very different frames. In this case, lifting up the tote bag and adjusting it are the snappier parts, while settling it down to my side is the slower part. I also made the slower frames hold for a little longer. I wanted the animation to bounce a little at the end too, so I added an extra frame at the end that was similar to the last frame, but with a little bit of recoil. Here's what the sketch looks like with in-betweens. Now, if you're just doing a movement study with this little figure guy, you're technically done. Congratulations on capturing the movement. If you want to draw a character on top of the figure, that's what I'll be doing next. I think people call this tie-down animation. I have no clue. I'm always kind of just guessing when I draw. I didn't have a character to use on hand here, so I just use a recent photo of me as reference for what the character should look like. I was at the zoo in this picture. I started the tie-down by lowering the transparency of the original layer so that I could draw on top of it. In order to better understand and clean up what I was working on, I separated the drawing into 4 layers. So that's the shoes, which barely move and are too detailed for me to want to redraw. The pants, which slightly move throughout the animation. The rest of the body, which are the head, torso, arms, the tote bag, the parts with the most movement essentially. And the glasses. The glasses I ended up placing on a separate layer because it'll definitely be a hassle to color in if I do it along with the face. I also never redraw them and just kind of move them around. I draw the initial frame first so I know what the whole character looks like, and then I start working on the layer with the most movement first. For full body animations like these with different working Bart Simpson. For full body animations like these with different working parts, I like to focus work on one group of parts at a time. To give a more concrete example, I'd rather draw how these braids fall on the character last, so I can focus on how they would interact with the shirt once all of the frames of the shirt have been drawn. I draw small details last too. It's better on my very small monkey brain. I don't like thinking. Here's what the final outline of the work looks like. Stop! Short ad break. For the past 2.5 years, I've been using a shortcut tool called TourBox. So they're one of the first companies who reached out to me about their product back in 2021, and I can no longer animate without it. It's made animation so much faster for me without needing to do hand gymnastics on my keyboard, and it simplifies sequences of commands for me in one comfortable and very satisfying sounding click. It has several buttons, dials, and combinations you can use to make creating things easier. Their software allows me to set up different shortcut modes for each and any application. Their software is insanely good and super customizable, and they update it frequently. You can even download other people's shortcuts from their website for free. They have 2 versions out right now, the TourBox Neo, which is their original wired version, and the TourBox Elite, which is their latest version that supports dual-host Bluetooth connectivity and haptic touch feedback. When I'm not using it, the TourBox becomes my fidget toy, essentially. I highly recommend trying TourBox out if you're a creative, an animator, an artist, an editor, whatever. It makes work a lot easier. And I've placed affiliate links to the TourBox Neo and Elite in the description below. If you're planning on getting one, it'll help me out a lot if you purchase it from there. Thanks for listening. Back to animating. Once I've drawn everything out, I start cleaning up the lines. I remove the sketch layer and realize that the pants and the torso layer have the same amount of frames with the same timing, so I just merge them together. The shoe layer I keep separate because I'd rather just color in 3 frames, and the glasses layer I keep separate for coloring convenience. I mentioned this in the previous video. I have all my brush strokes as drawing objects, meaning I can erase them separately without affecting other brush strokes. I erase the strokes on the Erase Selected Only setting. Here's what it looks like cleaned up. My coloring step comes in 3 parts. That is adding the highlight and shadow lines, coloring the lines, and then finally coloring the animation. I talk about this more in detail in the previous video, but I'll also give you a recap here for your convenience, or for those who might be seeing this series for the first time. I use the pencil tool for my highlight and shadow lines, settings on screen right now, and I use blue to indicate shadows and red to indicate highlights, or a change in color. Since I don't want this animation to look too detailed, I used very minimal shading just for the bucket hat and for shadows below the head. I also drew lines to separate the whites of the eyes from the rest of the face. After that, completely optional, but I like to color in the inside lines of my art because it makes it look softer and more cohesive for me. This is completely a personal preference. You can have your lines colored however you like. The first 2 steps of my coloring process are now complete. Now on to coloring for real. I colored the entire first frame of the animation for my own reference so that I'm sure about the colors and I don't suddenly change them midway. But if you're on Adobe Animate and do have that issue, you can use the Find and Replace tool via Ctrl F to change every instance of a color in your document with another color. Here's the settings you use for that. Now everything's prepped for actually coloring. If you recall, all of the things I drew in Adobe Animate are drawing objects. So I have to break apart each one of them so they're just lines and brush strokes at their most basic form. I can do this by going to each frame and breaking them apart with Ctrl B, or I can enable Edit Multiple Frames on the timeline and break apart everything from there. Quick steps to do that are on screen. If you're using a different animation software, there's usually a way to color in the highlight and shadow lines automatically. On OpenToons, it's called Auto Paint, which automatically paints in specific lines, and on other applications, I have no idea what it's called, I'm sorry. But it's a good thing to know that that kind of feature does exist in most animation software, so you just have to search it. By the way, I'd encourage you save throughout this process. If you haven't saved yet, save right now. I've lost way too much progress because of my old saving practices, so now I have several versions of each animation I create because I've turned paranoid. Now I just color every frame in with the fill tool. After coloring everything, I turn on Edit Multiple Frames again and erase all the pencil lines from there. I have my eraser on the biggest size and on Erase Only Lines mode. And then I lazily put together a background so she isn't just standing in a white void. And there you have it! Congrats on your first, second, I don't know, animation practice. Thanks for spending the time to make this with me, or just listening to me ramble on about it. I appreciate that you made it to the end of this little tutorial regardless. Again, if you do try out this practice, feel free to tag me on Twitter or on Instagram, because I do love seeing these works and it makes me feel really excited when other people are also excited about what they've made. If you guys have suggestions on what you might want to see me animate next, or maybe even trying out a different software to animate on next, let me know. I try my best to read all the comments, and a lot of you are inspiring and a lot of you are really sweet. Thanks so much for supporting me and my little video projects. My Coffee and YouTube Lasagna tier members are now on screen. Ooh, I could eat lasagna now, actually. If you'd like to support me and my art, feel free to check out my Coffee page linked in the description or by pressing the join button below. I'm planning to take these online projects a little more seriously this year. I'm trying my best to navigate the best I can, actually, and I'll be posting updates and other stuff in these member channels. Updates, digital wallpapers, and hopefully, eventually, physical stuff like stickers or postcards. Since I started making my own stationery at home recently, it's super exciting. I don't know, but I will start posting things on those channels. I have a lot of plans this year, actually. I'm developing a video game demo with some friends and have several upcoming video animation projects I'm working on for the first quarter of this year. I'm really excited and I hope you guys enjoy it when I release them. Seeing people enjoy the videos I make is one of the things that make me really happy. And yes, there will be more fan-made Zelda animations. Thank you for your patience. Since I've started just mentioning random games I'm playing at the end of my talking videos, I just like to say that I've been playing a ton of Deep Rock Galactic lately. It's a really good game. Okay, that's all. I hope you have a great day today. Bye.